What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the X-Transbots Dr. Egg with the Hasbro Quintesson Judge. So before I get into the comparison, we are going to do a mini review on the Dr. Egg. I haven't done a review yet. This was sent to me by Ultra Jazz, so thank you Ultra Jazz for getting this to me. I haven't had a chance to look at this. I didn't buy it myself, but because we haven't looked at this, I wanted to kind of get into the details, get into the setup and the ins and outs of this figure. Then we'll get into the comparison between these two. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into Dr. Egg and how he works. And you do have to do some assembly on this guy right out of the box. So these arms, I'll just take one out just for demonstration purpose. They just come like this. And you basically just, firmly push them into these. And you got to give it a kind of a good push. But then it does stay there. They're a little bendy wire. I wouldn't try bending this too much. I just think over time, eventually that bendy wire could potentially break. But I haven't had any issues so far. I just wanted to mention that. It doesn't feel that secure in there. Like if you shake it loose, you can get it out. But the harder you put it in there, the better it stays. There's nothing like grabbing onto it. The other thing you have to do is put the faces on, so I'm not going to take those off, but I just wanted to show you the instructions here. Here's the booklet that you get. It's a relatively nice book. And on the first page, it tells you, here are the faces, and then this is the order. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you don't install it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You install it. Number 2 and number 5 should be buckled first, and number 1, 3, and 4 next. So you just do it in that order. It's relatively simple. They just push in and slide down using these slots here. Then you have to get a battery. It's called the 14500. It's a rechargeable battery. This was extremely difficult to find. So I'll show you the ones I got. They came like this. Obviously, one of them is in there already. And it looks like this. It looks just like a AA, but it's not a AA. If you try to put a AA in there, it won't work because it's not enough voltage. So this is a 3.7 volt battery, 14500, 800 milliamps. So you need this because with the AA, you won't have enough power to power this guy. So you got to have one of these. It was a pain in the butt to get these. It took forever. I bought these from Walmart. Not too expensive, but I am going to ship the battery back with this so that my buddy Ultra Jazz has these batteries and he doesn't have to go through the same thing I did. All right, the other setup, I guess it's not really setup, but is the sayings that each of the face has. So it actually tells you which saying goes with which face, which is nice because when you first get it set up, it is going to be off. The sayings aren't going to match with the face. You just got to turn it until you get it to the right position. And then you can, have the right sayings. But it actually tells you, and also tells you their names: Judgment, Wisdom, War, Wrath, and Death. I'm going to forget their names, so it's nice to have this. The other thing you get, which is nice, is this, which is the remote control. Unfortunately, this remote does not work. I've tried. I thought maybe it was the batteries that I put in it. So I bought brand new batteries, Duracell, put those in. Still doesn't work. And I'll just show you, here's the buttons here, and it just won't light up. I'm not really sure what the issue is. I did tell the gentleman whose figure this is, Ultra Jazz, that was an issue, and he may have to send this back to his retailer. But here's the batteries. I do recommend you put this little flap here sticking out. Don't stick it all the way back in because this is very, very challenging to get out without something to help you. So I just leave this out a little bit and that'll help you to remove it the next time. So I recommend don't stick it in all the way. And I'm going to leave it like that. Oop. Well, now it's in there. Oh no, there we go. So there's a little bit, just enough sticking out so that Ultra Jazz can pull this back out. But I really don't know the reason why. It does look nice. You've got the metallic green paint on there and there. You got the clear stand here. It is very side heavy. So because it's shaped this way, it's heavy to this side. It does tend to fall down. So you do want to be careful. This is a painted surface all the way around. But if you don't put it on an even surface, it does fall down this way. and it could potentially get damaged. I would be careful with that. And if you're not using it, maybe just set it down so you don't have to worry about this just getting knocked over or falling down. So that's really it for the stand. Now let's talk about the main event here. Here is the figure. I am going to actually turn off the lights and show you the effect so you can see how it looks. But first, let's get this off. And it's probably going to go off. Unfortunately, that's just the way this is. But there's the battery. You just stick the battery in like that. And then you can see there's the wire. The wire is going to go get stuck inside down in there. So we'll probably have to reset the voices, unfortunately, because I just did this. That's okay. So you kind of get it down over this. And then you have to turn it to lock it on. The front is always this. So that's how you know where the front is. I think you're intended to take this sticker off. I didn't take it off because it's not my figure. So I'm going to leave that there. But of course, Ultra Jazz can take that off when he's ready. All right, so now we can press the button here. So this turns it on and off. This switches it to manual mode. So if you want to advance the faces by yourself, you can do that. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll watch all 5. We'll start off with Wrath here.
I've done it. He leads us again. Carry out the executions. You are guilty by association. We hope you find your accommodations comfortable. I praise your decision. I've done it. He leads us again.
So there are the lights and sounds. All right, that's really it for Dr. Egg and his features. Now let's get into the comparison. As I always say with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible. Of course, there's subjectivity involved when you're judging things in different categories. If I choose one or the other in a category and you prefer the other one, then you win. I really do these comparisons so that I can help people make a decision on which way they want to go with their Quintesson Judge for their collection. Very obviously, the prices are different. Very obviously, the sizes are different. The looks are different. So we're going to go over that. That's all included in this comparison. Without further ado, let's get started with the comparison. We'll start off with accessories. So here are the accessories they come with. So the X-Transbots just comes with this remote. It does have that nice ship look, and it is painted very nicely. The Hasbro comes with both this seat, which actually does transform for the alternate mode, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to transformation. And then it gives you this gun. So while they're not the greatest accessories, you do get more, and I do feel they're a little bit more functional. I just don't really love or need this remote. I'd rather just come over here and hit the button. So while it is a nice looking accessory, Hasbro definitely has more, and they seem to be a little bit more useful, at least in my opinion. So we're going to give accessories to Hasbro. All right, next we're going to talk about the cartoon accuracy. In order to do that, we're going to put the G1 cartoon there in the middle so you can see for yourself. And we'll look at each of these faces and kind of see how they stack up. So first, we'll take a look at Judgment. So there he is. You can tell that the X-Transbot's a little bit more yellowish versus the green and gray. This is more yellow and black. Next, we'll take a look at Wisdom. Here's Wisdom. And they look a lot more similar. The only difference, maybe it's more metallic paint on the X-Transbots. Next, we'll look at the War face. So here's War. These differ a lot more. So this has got green on it with the gray mustache, whereas this one's just a little bit of gray, no green at all. And then the sun kind of hat is a little different. It's more reddish, where this one's almost all orange. Next, we have Wrath. This definitely is a pretty big difference. I would say I like the look of this face better. I think it's also more G1 accurate. This one is just the features a little bit off. Maybe it's just the height or the depth of that, but they do look very different. And then finally is the kind of the most famous face, the one that we associate the most with Quintessons, which is Death. And I liked the original Hasbro one, but now that I see this, I really think the X-Transbots nail that face better. The other thing is the difference in the color of the actual shell. So Hasbro went with this gray, whereas X-Transbots with this baby blue, more whitish type of color. And this is definitely more accurate to the cartoon. So overall, given all the faces and the color of the actual shell, I'm going to give cartoon accuracy to X-Transbots. So we're going to talk about the sculpt on these two, and for me, this is pretty much a no-brainer. X-Transbots has a lot better sculpt going on. There is some sculpt on here. They both have things going on. It's just, it's muted on the Hasbro. Maybe it's because it's smaller. Maybe because it's, not a premium figure. The price point is very different. But with that being said, I'm going to give sculpt over to X-Transbots. All right, next we'll talk about the paint, and this is not going to take very long because the Hasbro figure only has limited paint. The shell is not painted. The faces do have some paint, so the yellow and the green here, the blue and the green here, the red and the black here, and then the teeth, and then the green and the gray here. But so all the faces are just plastic color. On the X-Transbots, every face is fully painted except for the eyes, which is clear because it lights up. The entire egg is painted, so it's obviously much more paint, so we're going to give paint, and the quality is very nice. So we're going to give paint over to X-Transbots. Next, we're going to talk about the build on these two, and if you haven't held this, you wouldn't really know, but this is a solid chunk of metal, this entire thing. I don't know if it needed to be metal, honestly. I think it could have been mostly plastic, maybe just the top or something, but it is very heavy, and because of that, it does give the impression of just value. It feels like a lot was put into this. A lot of material was put into this. This is obviously very light, thin plastic. It was meant for a mass retail release, especially given the price. So it's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but it doesn't feel premium. It doesn't operate premiumly, and it really is, more of meant to be a kid's toy. So we're going to give build over to X-Transbots. Next, we'll talk about the articulation. So the articulation on these is very similar. They both can rotate around the faces, although this one is automated with the electronics. And it does, if you have the battery in there, it will go off. But they both have arms that move, but the only difference is the X-Transbots arms are, basically infinitely posable because of the wire. You can kind of get them any way. They both have these translucent flame effect here on the bottom. It is nice that this lights up, but that's not really anything to do with articulation. The only thing that Hasbro has over X-Transbots is 3 of the faces have an opening and closing mouth. That's kind of a cool little feature. I do like that. But overall, I think the X-Transbots has the better articulation, which allows you to hold other characters like Cup or Hot Rod, and then have that on your display. So we're going to give articulation over to X-Transbots. Now we're going to talk about the engineering, transformation, alt mode. We're going to do those all in one for obvious reasons. So the X-Transbots does not have an alt mode. It is just basically a action figure display piece, whereas the Hasbro, they decided to build in a transformation, so it turns into a little base with a jail. The chair actually transforms, and there's some platforms. So because it actually has a transformation, we're going to give transformation over to the Hasbro. It's kind of a elimination. Also, the alt mode we're going to go over to Hasbro because, again, this doesn't have an alt mode. But when it comes to engineering, they both have some similar things going on. They both rotate. This one is a manual operation, whereas this one is an automated operation with the button. And it also has the LEDs built into each of the faces. It also, I guess it's behind one of the faces. It also has sounds built in, and it has a motor to turn the egg. So while I think it's neat to have the transformation, I think the gimmicks that they put in on X-Transbots really make it something special to show on your shelf. So I'm going to give engineering over to X-Transbots. And the final factor on these is the cost. That's a very, very obvious one. So Hasbro is going to be $30. The X-Transbots is going to be $175. So very clearly X-Transbots is going to win on cost. So final thoughts on these two guys and also on Dr. Egg. You see the score there. X-Transbots is going to win the comparison. Not that surprising. It is a premium figure. It is going after a G1 look, right? It's going to try to look as close to the movie. So, of course, they're going to win most of the categories. Where they didn't win is, the transformation and the alt mode because they don't have that. And the price, right? Obviously, the price is a big problem here. And let's talk about that. So I really do think this is a good piece. It looks really nice. The lights and sounds are very nice. They're effective. And overall, it's a nice piece. But there's 2 main issues I have with Dr. Egg. Number one, it doesn't it doesn't live up to its price. The $175 price tag, I can't see where the money's going. For me, I can see maybe a $100 figure, $120 at the most, given the current shipping issues with the pandemic. But that's it. I really, I don't think it's worth the value. It's worth the money. I do like the light up gimmick and accessories, or light up gimmick and the sound gimmick. But what I don't like is that battery. That battery is such a disaster. Very hard to find. It's not in most stores. I looked everywhere, kind of Lowe's, Walmart, CVS, all the normal places look for batteries. Very hard to find. That makes this difficult to, even get set up, because you've got to find them in a specialty place like Amazon, and then you end up paying more just to get those batteries. So that's really it for today. Hopefully I helped you make a decision on your own on which way you want to go with your Quintessons for your collection. That's really it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.